Hello and welcome. This is Matthias 76, and together we are decoding the deception. Today we are taking a look at 18-dimensional chess, a labyrinth of deception born of cosmological warfare, millennia in the making. Does it at times feel that the world, reality itself, has been folded in on itself? Everything you thought you knew has been morphed into some strange version of itself, and you don't seem to be able to find your bearings. Everything is so out of kilter that you suspect there may well be malevolent and nefarious forces at work. Everyone else continues on as though things are normal, but a guy with a red umbrella just floated by, and you know something is amiss. So you start to investigate and try to figure things out, but who do you trust? In whom do you place your faith? Is there anyone upon whom you can rely, anyone speaking truth? The more you dig, the less you think you know. There is a reason reality itself seems completely out of alignment, and you just can't decode the puzzle and decipher exactly what is going on. In order to put together an understanding of our currently chaotic and evolving world, you are going to need to travel back in time, way back in time. You are also going to need to open your mind to thinking about things differently, because the old way of looking at things, the accepted analytical modalities, are going to bring you right back to the same point of frustration, right back where you started, and that is just what they want. Make no mistake, there is a plan. Bombard people with information, one story after another, all day long, every day. Wear them out until they suffer information fatigue, and then move rapidly from one crisis to the next. Crisis after crisis after crisis, one worse than the one that preceded it, until it ultimately results in the masses having a very real form of PTSD that leaves them as compliant as sheep. But in the title of this video, I indicated I would be talking about chess, 18-dimensional chess to be precise. Now, what in the world does that mean, right? I also said we would need to travel back in time, way back. So, let's go. Satan. He is the Dark Lord. He prefers that we think of him as some cartoon villain, a construct, born of superstition and despotic desires no more wicked than enticing us to eat too much ice cream or fudge on our tax. What he really is, his nature and essence, is darkness itself. He hates everything that God loves. He sees man as an interloper in the universal scheme of things. And so he wanted to take them out. He launched his stratagem in the garden. He was playing three-dimensional chess. Adam and Eve countered with thinking more on par with checkers. I guess that is like me trying to match wits with Spock. It's not going to end well. He heard the decree from the Lord, Genesis 3:15, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. While he did not know exactly what it meant, he knew trouble, his doom, was coming through the woman's offspring. As he plotted and schemed, it all came down to the woman's seed. Intercede there, take over her seed, and he could save himself and, as a bonus, destroy man. We read in Genesis 6, When man began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. Hybrids. The bloodline, we would refer to it as genetics, was compromised. Thus came the Nephilim. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men of old, the men of renown. Nephilim, Anakim, we would simply call them giants, but they were more. They were in active war, foot soldiers, boots on the ground, in a cosmological struggle. God's judgment through the flood was not just on wicked man, as many of us learned in Sunday school. It was God's first salvo back at Satan's incursion. Joshua and Israel in the conquest took care of most of them. They were devoted to destruction. David and his men of valor took care of the rest of the giants who were found in Gath of Philistia. But fear not. We are still talking about why our world today is so perplexing and unsettling. Another journey back in time finds us at another key point in cosmological history, the Tower of Babel and its fallout. Collectively, man had once again rebelled, and once again they were disobeying God and trying to usurp his place of power, his authority. The fallout from the Tower of Babel is where our thinking on this goes amiss. We learned back in Sunday school that God confused their languages and they had to spread out over the earth, and that is true, but it stops short of telling the whole tale. That is filled in for us in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verses 8 and 9. When the Most High gave to the nations their inheritance, when he divided mankind, there at the Tower of Babel, he fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. Listen to that. According to the number of the sons of God, the B'nai Elohim, these sons of God are spiritual beings created by God. They fall within the broad and inaccurate category we use most often, angels. But the Lord's portion is his people. Jacob, his allotted inheritance. God selected Abram, Jacob, as the one who would be the origin of the nation that would be his own, Israel. Ergo, chapter 12 of Genesis, the calling of Abram, is what immediately follows the Tower of Babel. The 70 nations were assigned to the care of the lesser gods, spiritual beings, tasked by God to do his bidding. This is exactly what is laid out for us in Deuteronomy 32. He fixed the borders of the peoples according to the number of the sons of God. But they, those sons of God, the B'nai Elohim, like Satan before them, and the bad actors who came and bred with women in Genesis 6, rebelled and went their own way and took the nations with them. Have you ever wondered, why is it that all the pantheons of the gods, whether we look at those of the Egyptians, or the Greeks, or the Romans, or the Babylonians, or the Inca, the Aztec, or the Hindu, They all seem to have roughly the same breakdown of deities, who does what, one big boss to whom they answer. Apart from some stylistic variance, it is like looking at the next boy band. It's like doppelgangers in the spiritual realm. Doppelganger deities? How do you think that all came to be? Do you really think that these gods are just idols, the coincidental constructs of the imaginations of diverse people groups around the globe, in whose honor and likely by whose aid they produce the most incomprehensible feats of engineering ever known? The haze clears and the fog lifts when you go back to the Word of God that tells us, Genesis 11 and Deuteronomy 32, the nations were assigned to the B'nai Elohim, the sons of God, lesser, created spiritual beings, and they took that power, seized it, not as a stewardship, but as their own. They too rebelled, and for that, they were condemned. Psalm 82 gives us a front row seat at the trial, conviction, and sentencing of these rebellious sons of God, the B'nai Elohim. We read, God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Selah, just means think about it. Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. That's what God wanted these spiritual beings to do. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. I said you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. That was the station God had given them. Nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit the nations. God will, in the end, reclaim the nations. That is what he is doing now through his church. That is what the day of Pentecost and the spread of the gospel are all about. Reclaiming the nations. The apostles were empowered with the Spirit and equipped to speak the languages of the very people they were to reclaim. All those peoples listed off in Acts 2, God and his Son, Jesus Christ, are reclaiming through the gospel. What we in the sanitized and despiritualized church of this modern day often fail to recognize is that the proclamation of the gospel is the offensive in this spiritual war. It is a cosmological struggle in the heavenly realm, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. That from Ephesians 6, verse 12. It is a cosmological struggle in the heavenly realm. We could spend a great deal of time on God the Almighty's judgment on these lesser gods. War in heaven and Satan being cast to earth. I have a video on that. It's appearing on the screen right now, and the link is in the description below. In summary, Satan and the other lesser divine entities who follow him, who disobeyed God's command, usurped his authority, and like Satan, were judged and condemned. Where do you think they went? What do you think they are doing? Do you envision them sitting sullenly but patiently like a child in timeout, counting down the eons until the final day when they will be condemned and thrown into the lake of fire? Revelation 12:17 warns us that frustrated by his failure to kill off the earthly church, pictured as the woman, Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to make war against the rest of her offspring, those who obey God's commandments and hold to the testimony of Jesus. 1 Peter 5 verse 8 pictures it this way: your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. So again, where do you think they went? What do you think they are doing? And remember, they have time. They have time. They have had time. And unlike us, they do not grow weary. They do not tire. There is within them a seething hatred that can only come from a heart of evil. And last but not least, they possess an intellect that is informed by the experience of the ages. Combine it all together: time, limitless energy, seething hatred, intellectual superiority, and what you have is a hellish host playing 18-dimensional chess. And I know this is only 8-level chess. There are no graphics out there to be found for 18-dimensional chess. So please use the powers of imagination you possess and envision all the chess graphics going forward as being 18-dimensional. They didn't go away. They are not waiting patiently in timeout. They certainly did not say, well, we had our day, and then pine nostalgically for the glory days of yesteryear like an over-the-hill athlete reminiscing fondly as he looks at the trophy case. They have been busy. Quite busy. Now for something completely different. Conspiracy theories. I never liked conspiracy theories, and let me tell you why. It all came down to common sense. Common sense tells us that there is no way that any organization or cabal can manage to keep even a semblance of control and organization over all the different machinations of plotting and scheming, and work it all into a unified whole. After all, the overarching concept is that there is a master and overlord agency, they, them, whatever, who oversee and coordinate so that everything fits together, ensuring that everyone is working and pulling in the same direction and playing off the same music under the direction of one conductor. There is just no way. It does not pass the smell test. There is no human organization or agency that could achieve such control and coordination. Man's track record throughout the ages makes it clear that such is beyond our grasp. So, conspiracy theories? They do not pass the test. But let us rewind a moment. Remember the deities of old who disobeyed God's command, usurped his authority, and like Satan were judged and condemned, who didn't go away, who aren't sitting waiting patiently in time out, the ones who have all the time in the world, possess limitless energy, are fueled by a seething hatred, and possess an intellectual superiority that puts us to shame. With them, what you have is a hellish host playing 18-dimensional chess, and the possibilities are all but limitless for a reality that is turned in on itself, that leaves us all, the enlightened as well as the deceived, feeling adrift in a surreal landscape where the rules of logic and reason are more like guidelines. If the ones pulling the strings are the fallen ones, whose abilities far outstretch our own, then the common sense test needs to be recalibrated. The things that seem to us to be too far-fetched to be plausible. Comments such as, there is no way they could get away with that, no longer hold true because who they describes. No scheme, no matter how large and grand in its scope, is beyond their reach. And remember, we have a new standard, this cosmological standard for common sense, and what it takes to pass that test. One more thing. All of the players of this world, the ones that we think are so powerful, even those on the very top rung of the earthly human ladder of power, are but pieces on the board, themselves under the control of masters they dare not, they cannot defy. Mighty in this world, and remember, the mightiest of all are rarely seen. They operate in the shadows. Mighty in this world, they have a legion of players, pieces to do their bidding. They are but human drones created, built up for a purpose and controlled to ensure the will of their masters is carried out. What holds true in the technocracy holds true also for the democracy. They serve not the people, but those who are the direct intermediaries for the powers that should not be, but are, the powers that will not be defied. The same holds true for all the people who enjoy position, celebrity, and fame. So it is. We have 18-dimensional chess, a labyrinth of deception born of cosmological warfare, millennia in the making. There is so much more we could go into, but I will leave you with this. It is something you need to understand because from what I see, far too many miss it. The struggle in which we are engaged is exactly what Paul described in Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. This is spiritual. It is spiritual warfare on a cosmological and eternal level. And in that struggle, the lords of darkness do not care about accumulating the things of this world, its riches. Rather, they use these things for which we long as bait for the traps, using the very things we desire as the means of our doom. They do not want dollars. They do not want power or fame. These are but the tools they use to get you, me, and this world and all its inhabitants right where they want us, in eternal hellfire and damnation along with them. If you do not understand that, if you do not comprehend and rightly apply that, you will never be able to decode what it is the Dark Lords are about. They are fighting a spiritual war. That is what 18-dimensional chess is all about. This is our logo, which sports our Rubik's Cube of shame. It is embellished with the logos and symbols of the multidimensional menagerie of evil associations that serve the Dark Lords. I am here. I am doing this work because I believe that if you do not know that the battle you are in is spiritual, you're destined to fight the wrong fight and thereby lose. That is just one of the 18 dimensions of their assault. Even more, if you are aware that you are in a spiritual war but are ignorant of Satan's devices, those who serve him, you are all the more susceptible to deception, his deception. I hope that you found this video helpful and informative. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. I also invite you to subscribe, and if you do, make sure to hit the notification bell so you will be notified when we put out new content. Finally, help us inform others by sharing this video. This is Matthias 76, and together we are decoding the deception. God bless, and have a great day. That concludes our broadcast for today. We publish our videos on YouTube, BitChute, and Brighteon. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give us a like or a thumbs up. We invite you to subscribe so you can continue to receive our content. Also, please consider sharing this video with others. We love to hear from you, so please leave a comment below. This is Matthias 76, and together we will continue to decode the deception.